Okay, we finished everything in the book so far, right? Okay, we're getting down here to the end of the class year. All right? We got just a few more weeks. We won't be here next week because of Mother's Day. Okay. What? Hey. That's up to you. I don't know. You want to do it? We're going to move. We've gone over everything in the book. Okay? We've gone over prayers, which we need to continue to do, of course. Make sure we're all good to go there. All right? But now we're going to kind of move for these last few weeks to a different kind of, we're going to do Bible stories. Because now listen, everything we've talked about in the books is in here. Does everybody know what this is? Bible. Where did the Bible come from? The church. God inspired people to write the books of the Bible. The church is the one who put the books together into one big book. Lots of times we think of the Bible as one book. And it's okay. That's enough, girls. And that's okay to think of the Bible as one book. But the Bible is actually a lot of books. All put together. Okay? Now, we've talked about this. There's two parts to the Bible, right? Does everybody know the two parts of the Bible? My fast track, getting ready to do confession kids should know. The New Testament. And the Old Testament. The New Testament and the Old Testament. Exactly. The Old Testament was written before Jesus came. Okay? The Old Testament was written before Jesus came. And obviously the New Testament would be written after Jesus came. Now, here's a little bit of a bonus trivia question. Did Jesus tell anybody to write anything down? No, he did not. Does anybody know what he actually did say? No. When Jesus was getting ready to ascend back to heaven, this was after the crucifixion, after the passion, after his resurrection. Once Jesus was going back to heaven, okay, he told the apostles. First off, does everybody know who the apostles are? Not all their names, but who they were or who they are. The apostles were the 12 followers of Jesus. And then after his crucifixion, there was 11. Because Judas was no longer an apostle. Okay, and that's a whole other story for a whole other day. Now, he told the apostles after the crucifixion, after his resurrection, before the ascension, he told them to go and to preach to all nations and to baptize in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Okay. So, that's what Jesus told us to do. Now, he gave us a church, right? And he gave the church authority. Okay. So the church teaches in Jesus' name, right? We all know this. All right. But he never told anybody to write anything down. Now, it was going to happen eventually that people were going to start writing this down. Because it's a good way to, give information. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the books that are in the Bible are actually what we've talked about before. They're letters. Letters from Paul. Letters from John. Letters from James. All these different things. Some of them are like the Corinthians. The Corinthians was actually a church. It was a church in Corinth, which was in Greece. It still is today. The city of Corinth is still in Greece. There's also one in Mississippi, but we don't. That city was named after the one in Greece. Okay. And like the Thessalonians, they were from Thessalonica, which was a place. Hebrews was a letter to the Hebrews, to the Hebrew people. The Romans was to people who lived in Rome. Okay, so now we are going to, actually, hang on, I want to give you guys Bibles so you guys can follow along. So how many do we have in here today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You want to give me a hand, Sandra? Thank you. Hope we got enough. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we got enough. So make sure we got enough. All right, grab. See, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll have you get that side. Oh, hang on. Let's find one with a cover. This 1, 2. Ah, dang it. Because I didn't mean to. That's about to come. All right, we'll just use these. 1, 3, 4, 5, and 1 makes 6. Thank you, and I'll hit this one. I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it. This one? This one? Yeah. That's, the cover's about to come off. Okay. Would you like this one? Okay, grab, go down there and start this way. Go down there and start this way. Okay. Here you go. I'm gonna let, hey, I'm gonna let you and him share, okay? All right. Just let him help him out, okay? Thanks. All right. Thank you. Now, okay. Now, how many of you have ever actually read from the Bible? Picked up a Bible and read from it? Okay, not that many. All right. Do you know how to do it? I asked that question because sometimes if you hand people a Bible and you tell them to go to here, here, and here, they may not be able to tell you. Okay. All right. This particular one is all kind of color-coded and all that stuff like that. But we are going to read from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 14. Now, when I say that, remember, these are separate books, right? So you got to find Mark. Mark is in the New Testament, so it's going to be back around about a quarter of the way from the end. All right? Now, you'll see the style. Like you're Matthew, you're close. This is a gospel, so there you go. Ah, you've gone too far. These aren't very big books. Luke, there you go. Ah, you're in Mark. Very good. Now, the chapter is chapter 14. The chapters are marked, if you'll look. So you have Mark like 1, 2, chapter 1, chapter 2. Okay? We're 9, 10. Keep going. Mark. Or Matthew. Okay, you're Luke, so we want to come back a little bit. That's still chapter 16, so we're not far. 15, 14, right here, 14. Okay, so we're Mark. You see what I'm saying right here? You got Matthew, Mark. We're going to find 14. You got 15. So we're going to come back one more. Well, yours don't want to cooperate very well, does it? What is it? Has it got something wrong with the spine? Yeah, I see what it is. Those pages are starting to separate. All right, there we go. So just put your hand right there. That'll work. 14. Is everybody following along? You got it? You're getting there. You have Matthew and then Mark. If you hit Luke, you've gone too far. All right, Jenna, Hope. All right, that's fine. That's fine. So we're going to go till we start seeing Matthew. Now we're Matthew. We're close, okay? Matthew. Now we're Luke. Mark, chapter 14. Yep. Stop. Mark chapter 14. You got it? Yeah, you're good. Can you help Kayla?
I got nothing.
Got her? Good. You girls good? Girls good? All right. Yeah, when you hit Matthew, you're close. If you hit Luke, you've gone too far. So here's the verses we're going to look at. Mark chapter 14. Keep going. Is that 12 or 22? It's 12. Okay. Yeah, 12. Okay. Oh. Now listen. Now listen. All of the verse numbers are marked, and I'm going to show you how you can find them. What you're going to do is you're going to look for these little numbers, right? Like you got 14. Here's verse 1. There's verse 2, verse 3, verse 4. Okay? Now, the reason this happened, when Mark was writing his gospel, he didn't number his verses, right? He didn't number the letters in his paragraphs. That was done later for reference, so you could find it, right? We don't do that today normally. What are you doing? He took a victory lap, is what he did. He did.
I think, no, he was too slow to be a cheetah. He was more like a sloth. I was looking for a plane.
So, but the verses are going to be marked. And the verses we're going to read is verses 12 to 26. Okay? And you'll see this written this way. Mark 14, usually with a colon right here. This tells you the book of the Bible. This is the chapter. And these are the verses. Now, like I said before, when everyone wrote the different books that came into the Bible, they didn't divide them into chapters and they didn't divide them into verses. What are you doing? Oh, he's okay. He's all right. They didn't divide them into books and like in chapters and things. Yes, ma'am.
These books are different from the books that Zaylee has.
No, they're all the same. They're all the same.
No, when
It may look different.
Yeah, it may look a little different.
The translation is exactly.
They're all the same.
when me and Sage were in here with Mr. Vinny's class, the verses were different.
They might have been marked wrong or something. Might be just. Well, we'll figure it out. Okay. But here's what you'll find. The book. Oh, yes. Sorry. Okay. Mark. All right. Mark. Look for 14. So you got 14. You're 14. Okay. You're Mark. You're 14. You're right where you need to be. Now the verse numbers, like I said, if you'll look at the start of the chapter, if you'll look at the beginning of chapter 14, everybody hearing me? Beginning of chapter 14, you'll see a 1, and then you'll see a sentence start. Then you read that sentence, you'll see a 2. And that sentence starts. The markings for each verse are at the beginning of the sentence. That is that verse. And that's how you read that's how this was all done so we could, like, I could tell David, okay, I want you to go and read about Jesus in the Last Supper. So I want you to go to Mark chapter 14, verses 12 through 26. Well, if I handed him that and none of that was in there, he'd be like, what? You got to read the whole book to find the part. Now, do we need to read the Bible like that, like a book? Yes. But if you're trying to reference, it's a whole lot easier if everything's parceled out to where you can find it very easy. But you got to keep remembering in your mind, it wasn't written that way. The church did that so we could reference. Does everybody know what reference means when I say we can reference? Does that know what that means? So if I can tell you to go look something up, you can go find it. Yes, ma'am. I couldn't hear you because you were doing this.
Well,
Girls.
if someone's trying to tell you go look something up, you can find it.
Exactly. That's what reference means. Okay, so we are going to read Mark chapter 14, verses 12 through 26. Okay. Now, this one I wish we had more of these because these are children's Bibles. They're a little bit bigger, they're a little bit easier to read, things are marked a little better, but unfortunately we don't have enough of these. I wish we would replace these with these. These are excellent books excellent Bibles for children. He's going to share, or he can share with you, whichever one you want. How old are you, bud? Okay, so that's what, he can't read yet. You want to come down here and read along with your sister? Okay, yeah. Come over here. That's why. That's the only reason why. Yeah, sit here. Scoot a little bit closer so you can help you see. I know you can. Okay. All right. Now, in this Bible, it has Jesus eats the Passover meal with his disciples. Okay. What is this class about? Well, yes. What are we studying? True, but what's the sacrament? Communion. Okay? So we're going. So what is the Passover meal? Does everybody remember what the Passover meal is? What's the Passover meal? Hang on just 1 second. Hang on. Have I got everybody's attention now? Okay. It's hard for people to hear me, and it's hard for people to hear everyone else if everybody else is talking. You got to be quiet. Okay? Thank you. Now, what is the Passover meal?
The Passover meal is when the angel of death passed
Over Egypt, right. What did they eat?
lamb.
They ate lamb, spotless lamb, with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and they ate it as if they're going to have to travel, which they did. So, now, after Passover, the actual Passover event happened, the Jews celebrated it every year, right? During the time of Passover, okay? They celebrated that every time. So now, you celebrate, people still do this today. Today it's called a Seder meal, but that's what it is. It's a Passover meal. We used to do Seder meals here at the church, and they were Christianized, a little bit different from a Jewish Passover meal, from a Jewish Seder meal. But all the elements were still the same because we were still celebrating the same thing. We celebrate Passover too. We just do it as Easter. Okay, that's kind of Passover for us, but we do still recognize Passover. Okay, so Jesus and his disciples are getting ready to eat a Passover meal. Now, what you're going to notice is this Passover meal is not like the typical Jewish Passover meal. So we're going to hear that, okay? On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, which is the festival that they're celebrating, the day the lambs for the Passover meal were killed, Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where do you want us to go to get the Passover meal ready for you?" Verse 13, then Jesus sent two of them with these instructions. Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him to the house he enters, and say to the owner of the house, the teacher says, where is the room where my disciples and I will eat the Passover meal? Then he will show you a large upstairs room, fixed up and furnished, where you will get everything ready for us. The disciples left, went to the city, and found everything just as Jesus had told them. And they prepared the Passover meal. When it was evening, Jesus came with the 12. I got to turn my page. While they were at the table eating, Jesus says, I tell you that one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me. This was talking about Judas is going to betray Jesus. And we'll talk about that at another time. Okay. The disciples were upset and began to ask him one after the other, surely you don't mean me, do you? Jesus answered, it will be one of you 12, one who dips his bread in the dish with me. The Son of Man will die as the Scriptures say he will. But how terrible for that man who will betray the Son of Man. It would have been better for that man if he had never been born. Now, think about that for just 1 second. What if you heard the person that you believe to be the Messiah, the person that is the Son of God, telling you, because you know who you are, if you're the one who's going to betray him, that it's better that you had not been born? That's pretty big stuff, isn't it?
And scream, run, and get out.
Then you know you messed up.
Then you know you messed up. Exactly. Exactly.
The phrases
Are a little bit. It's a little bit different because, right, for children. But I wanted you guys to follow along because if you are going to read from the Bible, you need to know how to read from the Bible. It's not just enough to pick it up necessarily and start reading, which you can do, of course. But it helps to know, you got to know where the books are. You got to know where the chapters are. You got to know where the verses are. If you don't know how to do that, you can't read the Bible. Okay? All right. So we're going to keep going. Now we're to the Lord's Supper. While they were eating, Jesus took a piece of bread, gave a prayer of thanks, broke it, and gave it to his disciples. Take it, he said. This is my body. Have we ever heard that before? Where do we hear that? In the Mass. Take it. This is my body. Then he took a cup, gave thanks to God, and handed it to them. And they all drank from it. Jesus said, this is my blood, which is poured out for many, my blood which seals God's covenant. Okay? His blood that is poured out for many. Okay, before some of the language in the Mass changed a few years ago, we used to say, for all. But actually in Scripture it says for many. Now, many, for many, for many, for you and for many. But for many, for everyone. Okay. But this is the blood that is going to be poured out. Where did that happen? When did that happen? When he was crucified, right? What happened before the crucifixion?
Last Supper.
Well, yes, but what happened between the Last Supper and the actual crucifixion? What happened? What did they do to him?
You watched the Passover.
You watched the Passion of the Christ, right?
Remember?
Not the
I don't think she watched that part. I don't think she was in the room.
She wasn't a
Jenna was. Jenna, what happened to Jesus before the crucifixion? What did they do to him?
After the Last Supper.
After the Last Supper and before the crucifixion, what did they do to him?
Before they gave
Remember when we watched the movie?
He had to carry his
It was during Easter, remember? What did they do to him, Trinity? They whipped him. They beat him. What's called scourged him. I mean, they just about beat him to death.
Well, that's during the crucifixion.
No, it was before the crucifixion. Right before they crucified him. Like just a few hours before they crucified him.
Trust me, I don't want anyone to watch it.
It's pretty graphic. It's very graphic. Now, but that, and then when he was crucified, what happened during the crucifixion? How did they know he was dead?
They stabbed him.
Yeah, they stabbed him. What happened after they stabbed him? What came out? Blood and water, right? So he shed his blood for us all, or for many.
Don't forget they
'Cause
gave
we-
him a throne crown.
They gave him a crown of thorns. He bled from that. Yes. Big old thorns, and they weaved it into a crown and put it on his head. Because he was a king, right? That's what they were told. He was a king. He was the king of the Jews. Now they did this to mock him. Everybody knows what mocking means, right? Everybody knows what it means to mock. We're making fun of him. So they did it to mock Jesus. But through all of this, he did shed his blood for us. So and that's what when he gave them the cup and told them to drink, that this is the blood that will seal the covenant. Now you see why we believe that the Eucharist is the body and blood of Christ. Why do we believe that? Because Jesus said so, right? Take it. This is my body. Then he took a cup, gave thanks to God, and handed it to them, and they all drank from it. Jesus said, this is my blood, which is poured out for many. My blood, which seals God's covenant. I tell you, I will never drink again this wine until the day I drink the new wine in the kingdom of God. Then they sang a hymn and went out to the Mount of Olives. Now, we've heard about the passion of Christ, right? Christ's passion. This is when Christ's passion starts.
Wait. What if God didn't die? Like they didn't want to kill him?
Okay. Now, that's a good question.
Would he still be alive?
Well, he still is alive today. He's alive in heaven, right?
Walking with us.
I don't know. That's a good question. But that's his purpose. God knew what would happen. Okay?
Could he see the future?
He knew what his purpose was the day he was born.
Now, Kayla brought up a very good question. Can God see the future? What do you guys think? Can God see the future? How many of you think God can see the future?
He makes the future. That was my answer. Yeah, I took it.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this question.
Say that louder.
Okay. Okay, let me ask you this question. All right. Did God create everything?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Can we go back in time?
No.
Can we, at least not yet. We may one day be able to go back in time. It's entirely possible, I guess. Well, I should say, it's theoretically possible.
Maybe the phone booth will become real soon.
From Bill and Ted? Oh, Doctor Who, yeah. So I was thinking, when I thought going in time and I heard phone booth, I'm thinking Bill and Ted. But, because I was an 80s child. So, now, can we go forward in the future? No, we can't go back and we can't go forward, right? We move as time moves, right? We live our lives and we move as time moves. Okay, now, so we're always going forward in time. Yesterday we can never go back to, and it will never really be tomorrow. It's always going to be the present time for us, right? Okay. God made all of this. God made the universe. God made everything. Now, if you make something, can you be in it?
Everything that happens is now in the past after it happened.
True.
Yes.
If you make something, can you be in that something? As the creator of that thing. Okay, you were talking about your home ec class a minute ago. You guys make a pie. Can you be in the pie?
No.
You can eat the pie, yes. Pie can be in you, but can you be in it? I like to make things out of wood. If I make stuff, can I be in that stuff?
Well, sometimes.
No. I might can use it. I might can get inside, say, a box that I made, but could I be in the wood? Could I be in the stain? Could I be in those things? You're right. I'm taking wood and making things out of it, but you know.
If you cut your finger off, you're bleeding into the wood. You're going to be in it.
Yeah, but can you be in that? If I helped build this building, which I did not, but if I helped build this building, can I be in the walls, like in the material for the walls? I could be in the room that I might have made, but really you're not making the room. You're just making all the stuff that goes around the room. Can you be in it? No. What's that? Yes.
We're making my legs because my dad has 40 ankles and we always have to go and he works and works.
He works and works and works. Yeah, I understand. It's okay. Now, we know God exists, right? We talk about heaven as pointing up. But we've sent rockets into space and shuttles into space. And they've gone outside of the atmosphere. Is heaven there? No. Heaven's not there. Heaven's not there. Not physically.
You can't physically, like your living body cannot physically go to heaven.
Not yet, anyway. We will eventually.
When you live.
You go outside of time and space when you go to heaven. When we die, what happens to our souls? They leave our body, right? They're not in our body anymore. Your soul is what animates you. It's what makes you be able to do things. Okay, it's what makes you alive. Yes, your heart is pumping, your brain is functioning, you're breathing, you're eating, you're doing all these things that you have to do to feed your body. But your soul is a different thing. What happens to your soul after you die? Your soul goes to heaven. Okay? God made it, but He's not going to be in it. God is outside of time and space. So, since God is outside of time and space, and He's made everything, He knows everything that has happened, is happening, and will ever happen. Now, we're getting into some pretty deep theology here. It's very hard for us as human beings to wrap our brain around the fact that God already knows what we're going to do. He already knows. Now, does that mean He cannot, give you grace and change your mind about something? Well, yeah, of course he can. Now, he already knows whether you're going to change your mind or not, or do whatever it is you're going to do. He already knows. But he still comes to us. He still gives us it, because to us, time is still moving on, moving on, moving on. But he ultimately knows if that's already going to happen. That's weird. It's hard to think about, isn't it? If God already knows, well, then we really can't change anything. Well, no, actually we can, because we are living. We are continuing to move through time. So can God see the future?
Yes.
Not exactly, because to God it's already happened. God is the future. God is the past, and God is the present. Okay? So can God see the future? Yes and no. No, not kinda. Yes and no. Yes, he can see the future to the way we look at it. No, to the way he looks at it.
Because he's looking at the past.
It's all already happened. And it all is all going to happen. And it all has happened. You're squinting your eyes. It's hard to think about it, isn't it? Because we think in time. That's all we know.
Like the egg you dropped. It already happened.
It already happened. But that's all we know as human beings. That's all we know is time. Girls? That's all we know, though, right? We don't see the future, do we? No. Now, let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. You know that things are sharp, right? A knife, a pen, things are sharp, right? A rock can be sharp. Oh, yeah? I got you. But you know things are sharp, right? You know that if you take a sharp knife and touch your hand with it and like pull, you're going to cut your hand, right?
Yeah, I think I took
Or paper cuts. You know that if you get the edge of the paper against your hand just right, it's going to cut you, right? Now you know this. Does that Okay, hang on a second. And let's say you cut your hand. Did you see the future? No. No, you didn't see the future. You didn't see the future. You knew what was going to happen before it happened, but that don't mean you saw the future. We know these things, right? We know what is what. We know sharp things cut people. Well, can you close this for a little bit, please? Thank you. So we know these things are going to happen. That doesn't mean we see the future. Okay? We use this knowledge that God has given us, right? Hot things burn, cold things make you cold, sharp things cut you, clothes make you warm, or clothes make you too hot, depending upon the air. Do you have a question? Okay, then. So, but that doesn't mean we see the future, now does it? It don't mean that I can go, I know that knives are sharp. David's going to cut his hand tomorrow. I don't know that. I can't know that. You know things are sharp. You don't know that you're going to cut your hand tomorrow. Let's say you cut your hand. You didn't know you were going to do it. It just happened. We think of things in time. Like that right there. Okay? I can't go back and take that and undo it. Because it's already happened. But you get what I'm saying, all right? But God can see all of that. It has happened. It is happening. And it will happen. And He knows all of it. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Well, this is messing with my mind.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it does.
Wait,
All of this can mess with your mind.
like, does God,
Riley Ann,
see?
I will put you in that corner for the rest of the class if you don't be quiet. Do you understand me? Look at me. Do you understand? Then I shouldn't hear you anymore until it's time to ask a question or I ask you a question, right? Yes, go ahead.
Well, Can God, like, does God know when we're about to sin?
Does God know what?
When we're about to sin.
Yes. Oh, yes. Does God know when we're about to sin? Yes. God knows when we're about to sin. When we're about to sin? God. Okay. God made everything, right? God made you. God made me. God made all of this, right? And we know God sees everything. Of course He knows when you're going to sin. He knows everything you're going to do.
You gonna be bad?
Yes, ma'am. Bad, good. He knows all of that. Okay? But can God see the future? Yes and no. Because to Him, no, not sort of. It's yes and no. To us, yes, because we haven't experienced it. To our point of view, God can see the future. Everything's already happened to God. So it would be like seeing the past. But God is also ever present. Everything is the present for Him. Not yet. We're going to keep reading. We might read another verse. We might try to find another verse and read it. Okay.
I just want to go and use the rest of my energy trying to hunt them.
No, that's later. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Well, is God in our soul?
No, God is not. Well, yes and no. God is not in our souls like our souls are in our bodies. But when we take communion, He gives us grace. So yes, you could say that God is in our souls. He comes in through communion. Yeah. That's one of the ways we receive grace. What's another way we receive grace? What's another sacrament? Yes.
Confession.
Confession is another one. Yes, we do receive grace there too. What's another one?
Baptism.
Marriage. Marriage is another sacrament. Let me ask you baptism. That was the one I was looking for. Yes. She's got a very good one. Marriage. Now let me ask you a question. When we receive the sacraments, who performs it? Is that the same? Does that happen when you get married? It never happens by the priest when you get married. Marriage is the only sacrament that the man and the woman do together. The priest just tells them what to say. And yes, he'll give them blessings, that's true. The priest does not marry you. You marry each other. The sacrament comes from the participants, not the person leading it. But now, in every other sacrament, yes, it is through the ministers. It is through the bishops and the priests. Yes. In marriage, it's the other way. It's the only sacrament like that. We marry each other. When my wife and I got married, we married each other. When Miss Gina and Mr. Noel got married, they married each other. The priest just told them what to say. Because guess what? He's got that book that tells you everything you need to say. You got baptized. Now that's a different story because in that case, the priest is the one who pours the water and says the words. It's the priest doing it there. And when you go to confession, what happens is the priest will extend his hand and he'll say the words of absolution. So that's when the grace is inferred then, is through the words of absolution. Okay? And in the Eucharist, the priest says the words of consecration and then gives you the host, gives you the Eucharist. See what I'm saying? The priest is involved in all of these other ones. But in marriage, it's the man and the woman. They marry each other. Now, could you do it without the priest? No. In theory, yes. But the priest needs to be there to make sure everything's going properly. Or deacon. Deacons can do it as well. Excuse me.
Mr. Deacon Ken.
Mr. Ken. Yeah, Deacon Ken could bear. I'm sure he's married quite a few people by this point. Sure he can. Baptisms. He cannot absolve and he cannot consecrate But he can do just about everything else. Yep.
Can he confess?
No, he cannot. He cannot. He cannot absolve, which is part of confession, absolve. He trains the altar servers. He could do that too. Yeah. Anybody can do that. As long as you have received your sacraments, anybody can altar serve. He has the experience. And that's kind of his job. He's there to help the pastor. He will be helping you all. Yes. Now, I want to read 22 to 26 again because I want to make sure we understand this. Okay. While they were eating, Jesus took a piece of bread, gave a prayer of thanks, broke it, and gave it to his disciples. Take it, he said. This is my body. No, in here. In here. Yes, ma'am. I told you earlier to go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom. Okay. Take it, he said. This is my body. Now, let me ask you this question. We talked about this before. When Jesus says this, what happens to the bread? He breaks it. But what happens when he says, take it? This is my body. What happens then? It becomes, say again. Yeah, he gives it to them. That's what he does. But what happens there when he says, this is my body? What happens at that moment? Transubstantiation. That was the word I was hoping somebody would remember. Transubstantiation. The substance changed. It's no longer just bread anymore. It's Jesus' body. Was Jesus holding his body in his hands? Was he holding himself in his hands?
No.
Yes. He was holding himself in his own hands. Now think about that. We've talked about that before, right? We can't hold ourselves in our hands, right? I mean, yeah, I've got quite a gut here. I could take a knife and I could cut out a piece of my gut and I could hold it. It's gross. I could do that though, right? Do it? I'm not gonna do it. Are you crazy? But I could, right? I could do that. I could do that. Okay. But it would be a physical part of my body that I could cut a finger off and hold it. So I would be holding myself in my hands, yes.
Bawling your eyes out because that hurts a lot.
Oh, I'd hurt terribly. I'd hurt terribly. But I could do that, right? I could do that, yes? Okay, I could do that. Now let me ask you this question though. Would, my saying this is my body, would it change whatever I'm holding? No, because it was my body before. It was my body before I did that, right? Everybody understand that? Yes. No, I don't know. Yeah, it's your body before, it's still your body. You didn't change anything. Jesus took something that was not his body, that was not physically his body, right? It was a piece of bread, right? It's 10:30. Time to go to bed. Somewhere in the world it's time to go to bed. Yeah. It's 10 and then it's 30 minutes after 10 o'clock. Very good. But if Jesus then takes this piece of bread and says, this is my body, well, what's happened? It's changed, though. The bread has changed. Now, when they eat the bread, what are they eating? The body of Christ. They are eating Jesus. Does that make them a cannibal?
No.
No, Miss Lydia, it does not make them a cannibal. It does not. Because this is Christ presented in an unbloody manner, right? The bread is not bloody. It's not his physical flesh like we would think if we cut a piece of our flesh off. But he changes the bread to his body. Okay? Same thing with the wine. Then he took a cup. Now notice it doesn't say wine. But that's what was in the cup. Then he took a cup, gave thanks to God, and handed it to them, and they all drank from it. Right? So he has a cup of wine. I've got this, right? Say it were full. And I open it and I hand it to Sandra. And she takes a drink. Then she hands it to Jacqueline. She takes a drink. She hands it to Jenna. She takes a drink, and so on and so forth around the room. Right? Everybody's had a drink of Mountain Dew. Easy now. Everybody's had a drink of Mountain Dew, right? Everybody's had a drink of my soda, right? Now, you've all shared it. So you all have some of the Mountain Dew in you, right? Because you've drank it. It's physically in your body. What does Jesus say after that? Jesus says, "This is my blood, which is poured out for many, my blood which seals God's covenant." Okay? All right? So, Jesus says, "This is my blood." So what happens to the blood? Or what happens to the wine now? What happens to the wine now? It changes, just like the bread. It changes. But it changes. So when we hear Father Mark up at the altar during Mass, when he takes the little white bread host and he holds it up and he says, "Take this, all of you, and eat it. This is my body, which will be given up for you." And then he holds it up and you hear the bells ring, right? Okay? When this happens, what happens to that piece of bread? Eventually it gets eaten. But what happens at that moment? What does that bread become?
It becomes stomach.
You're there, you're close. Not the stomach. It goes into your stomach. What does it become? The body.
The body.
There you go. The body of Christ. Now let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this question though. Let me ask you this question. Is Father Mark Jesus? No. We obviously all know that. There you go. That's where I was going with that. He's in the place of Christ. Christ, like I've said before, is not with us physically like we are right now. He's ascended to heaven.
Okay, next question. Who gave Father Mark the authority?
Oh, that's another good question. Yes.
Who gave Father Mark the authority to be in place?
Who gave Father Mark the authority to be in the place of Christ? The church. Who specifically in the church? Not specifically the very person, but what was that person's job? You guys are going to learn this week. This is a little sneak peek. That's the exact word. You've been reading ahead, haven't you? The bishops. Okay? Yes, you may. The bishops. The bishops are the one who ordain priests. The bishops are essentially the apostles for us. Okay? After the apostles went out, they needed help, right? The whole world could not work on 12 men. So they ordained people. And those people that they ordained became known as bishops. And then those bishops became, ordained people. And they are priests. And all of these people can, if you traced it back, every single person ordained in the Catholic Church can tie their ordination back to an apostle. Think about that for just a second. The 12 people who followed Jesus, well then you remove Judas because Judas was no longer an apostle because he betrayed Jesus. Yes, ma'am. And just as... Kayla already came back. Yes, you can.
My Bible, it literally says the betrayal by Judas.
By Judas, yeah. It's just wasn't it, yeah. The betrayal by Judas. Judas betrayed Jesus and did not receive the blessing, so he was not an apostle anymore. But the apostles did replace Judas. After the ascension, the apostles did replace Judas. So there was still 12 apostles. Okay. These 12 apostles then ordained people. They became bishops. And then they ordained people who may or may not have later on became bishops. Not every priest becomes a bishop. but every bishop is a priest. Okay? When you stop and think about that, we just got a new bishop not too awful long ago. It was what, last year? It was during COVID. Yeah, it was during like back last summer or something like that we got a bishop. Or no, Bishop Baker was our last bishop before Bishop Reka. Bishop Reka. Yeah, he's originally from Michigan. Okay, grew up in Michigan and all that stuff like that. And his last diocese was in Gaylord, Michigan. Okay, so Bishop Reka is now our new bishop. When there are new priests ordained in our diocese, it will be Bishop Reka that does it. He will do their ordination. Okay, every priest may not become a bishop, but every bishop is a priest. They're still a priest. They're just like the boss of priests, and they can make more priests. Okay, they can ordain men to become priests. Okay. You got to have priests, you got to have bishops. Now, who's the very top bishop in our church? The Pope. Does everybody know our Pope's name at the moment? Pope Francis. Very good. Very good. Pope Francis. Now, here's a bonus trivia question. Can anybody tell me his real name? His name was not born Francis.
John the Timothy the Third.
Is it time? Not quite. We got about a little more than a half an hour. More than half an hour. Nope. His name was Jose Bergoglio. Now, does that sound Italian? Does that sound Italian? Jose Bergoglio, the last name Bergoglio. Sounds a little Spanish, a little Italian, right? Where was he from? Where was he from? Where did he grow up? What country? South America. You're cheating over there. Yeah. Argentina. He is the first bishop to come from outside of Europe. Well, and also, at least since those, at least those since that came from Jerusalem and those areas around, where Israel is today. He's the first Latin American person, although he is Italian by like his family came from Italy. They moved from Italy to Argentina.
That's the last name of Bergoglio.
Now Bergoglio is very Italian, but he was raised. He's Argentinian. He was raised in Argentina. He tangos. He dances. He's actually supposed to be a very good dancer. And loves of course loves Argentinian food. I would love to try Argentinian food. I bet it's awesome. Yes, sir. Hang on, I'm coming back. You grew up in Mexico? Okay. But see, this is a big deal. And the reason why it's a big deal is because most popes come usually from Europe. Because there's a lot of Italian cardinals. Go ahead.
Does Jesus have a last name?
Does Jesus have a last name? No. And here's why. Make sure I'm explaining this right. And I could be wrong, but I'm gonna make sure. Yeah, Christ is not a last name. It's actually a title. Jesus is the Christ, which is the Greek version of saying like Messiah. Greek, not geek. Greek. But there were not like family groups like that within Hebrew culture at that time. I mean, there were. Most people's last names, like how last names developed, mostly developed from what you actually did. Like in German. We'll take the German language, for example, because I'm going to bring this back around to the Pope. Like the German name Schneider. Schneider is, I want to say, a tailor, like a person who makes clothes. Okay. In English, you could say Cooper. The last name of Cooper. If you go back in that person's family, Cooper. Coopers is like the job you do when you make barrels. To hold like water or beer or not. He's our dog, and we just called him Cooper. But to be a Cooper is a person who makes barrels. Okay, yes, you did. But tailor in English, it's tailors are people who make clothes. Yes.
My last name is White.
I'm proud of you for
What's that? Merrill's what?
Right C.
Right, see, yeah. It's not always what you did for a living. But like a smith could be a blacksmith or, whatever. But most likely blacksmith. Could be anything. There's all kind of different smiths. There's Aerosmith. That's a whole different thing. But anyway, a locksmith, yeah. But a smith is like a person who makes things. Okay, it's a smith. But not every last name, like my last name is Word. We didn't invent like words. We didn't do that. Could I tell you why my last name is Word? No, couldn't tell you. I know my family comes from Wales. Like my family name comes from Wales. What's
Happens a lot. When people come over to the United States from a different country, they sort of just, and most people didn't spell it, and there was no set spelling for words then. It was something that sounded close to that, so that's what the person at the desk wrote down.
Entirely possible.
Word,
Could have been.
and then it was written down as word.
According to some of the genealogy that some of my family have done, there were actual words with our type of spelling in Wales before they came. It's time for lunch. No, it's it's 10:45.
It's been 15 minutes since we asked the last time.
Yeah. So, but now a friend of mine, his last name now is Short Nancy, which is a very weird last name. Chances are, the theory goes, is that his last name was Shaughnessy, which is an Irish last name. And whenever he was coming into the country, like he said, Shaughnessy. And whoever wrote it down as Short Nancy, and that's when he became Short Nancy.
Okay.
Yes.
So my maiden name was Bundick.
Bundick.
B-U-N-D-I-C-K, right? Which I knew came from Bundrick, and they lost the R somewhere along
Hang
the
on.
way.
Hang on.
Okay, so it says this surname Bundrick is of twofold origin. It was a baptismal name of the son of Bond, a popular early font name. The name was brought into England in the name of the Norman conquest of 1066. The name was derived from the Old Norman bondi and also meant one who was an unfreetended, a bonded man, or a serf.
Ah,
So basically,
servants. Yeah. That's French, too. Norman, that would be French, right? What would be modern day France, Gaul, and all of that? Yeah.
Okay, when are we going to wrap it up? Please be now.
We're going to wrap it up very soon. Because I want to go over some stuff with them. So we're going to wrap it up very soon. Yes, sir. Yes. Hang on. Shh. We're not done yet. Yes, sir.
Aaron, stop touching people.
Say again. Go ahead.
I don't want to say Brandon because his name says Brandon.
Brandon. Yes, you can close your book. Why I brought that around about Germany. Let me get back to that right quick. Okay, because I did say I was going there. You can. You guys can close your Bibles if you want to. All right, listen. Hey, we're not done yet. All right, listen. Now, in just a minute. Actually, you can go ahead and go now if you want to. Go ahead. All right, listen. Okay. How many of you have ever heard of Pope St. John Paul II? Okay. He was the Pope when I came into the church. Okay. He was the first non-Italian Pope in like several centuries. They'd all been Italian. At least I think centuries. Been a long, long time. Many, many years. All the popes had been Italian. He was from Poland, which is in Europe. The next pope after him was Pope Benedict XVI, who was German. Actually from the region of Bavaria in Germany, which is an area in Germany. It'd be like saying he was Southern or from the Midwest or from, that area. Like the United States has, the northern area, southern area, Midwest, Southwest, Southwest, North Pacific Northwest, all these different areas with, be like saying that. He's from Bavaria, okay? He was from Germany. So now we've had 3 popes in a row because you have Pope St. John Paul II, who's now a saint. Pope Benedict XVI, who is still alive. He just resigned. And so then we have Pope Francis. 3 popes, all of non-Italian descent, one of which was from South America, so from the Americas. This has not happened. Well, there's never been a pope from the Americas. until Pope Francis. But something like this had not happened for thousands of years. So this is a very kind of, like, nationality-wise, this is a big deal. I mean, it's very, because most of the time it was just assumed that the next pope was going to be from Europe. And the next pope could be from Europe. He could be from the United States. He could be from Australia. He could be from Africa. He could be from wherever. He could be from Mexico. Absolutely could be from Mexico. Well, the chances of the next pope being like from the United States, probably pretty low. Not because there's not good cardinals that wouldn't make good popes. There's just, for one, not as many. There's a lot more from Europe and a lot more from like Central and South America. And just a little bit more so.
You guys just don't realize how big
Yes.
There are millions and millions of Catholics around the world.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Why can't gold become like keys or bishops or anything like that?
Okay. The reason, it's kind of a twofold reason. All right. When Jesus was calling people to follow him, did women follow Jesus? Well, obviously women followed Jesus. There were women who followed around and listened to Jesus, absolutely. But when he was calling the people that was going to be his apostles, he only called men. Now, why did Jesus not call women? I don't know. You could say, a lot of people try to say, well, it was cultural. They wouldn't have accepted women. I don't know. In Hebrew culture, they probably would have. Because when you look at the kingdoms that came down through the Hebrews over the years, from Solomon and David and all of these people, do you know who the queen was? The mother. It was the king's mother that was the queen, not his wife. Hush. All right. It was his mother that was the queen, not his wife.
Why do you think Mary's the queen of heaven?
Now, if there is one person in Jesus' life that would have been the perfect example to be a priest for him, who would it have been? His mother. He did not choose that. Now, does that mean that Jesus was sexist? No, he's God. Okay, let me ask you this question. Are there things that men do better than women? There are. I mean, it's just, but are there things that women do better than men? Absolutely. Why do you think that lots of times women are teachers? Whoa, you okay? Everybody okay? Yeah, it didn't get locked out. Okay. But are there things that women do better than men? Absolutely, there are things that women do better than men. Now let me ask you this question. Just because there are things that men do better than women and women do better than men, does that make, say, men better than women or women better than men? No.
Women are smarter than men.
No, they're not actually. That's not true. Men and IQs, men and women are the same. Generally speaking, they're all the same. You will find maybe men are stronger in certain things and women are stronger in other things, but their IQs are the same. No, that's actually been studied. There are studies about that. Now, it doesn't make women strong, better than men. It doesn't make men better than women. Let me ask you this question: are apples and oranges fruit? Are they all sweet? They can be sweeter. They could be, yeah. But are they generally speaking sweet? Are they the same thing? No. Will they all make you healthy? Yes. Women have a different role. It's not that women are in less than men or men are greater than women. But now, why can't we have women priests today? That was when Jesus was around, and Jesus is in heaven now. We have the church. Why can't we do it now? That's usually the next question. Well, why can't we do it now? The church does not have the authority to change it. When it comes to things like that, the foundation of the church, The church does not have the authority to ordain women. Are there women out there who would make excellent priests and bishops? You better believe there are. There are women out there who would make excellent confessors, which are like, when you hear confession, the person who hears your confession is called your confessor. Any priest can hear your confession, but generally speaking, we generally tend to go to the same person. Usually our pastor, but it doesn't have to be. Okay? There are priests who would make there are women who'd make excellent confessors, have a very big heart, and would be able to help you along in your spiritual journey. But is that the role that God gave them? No. Men can't have babies. There are men out there who I'm sure would make excellent mothers, but they can't have babies. Does that make us less so? No, it doesn't. Women were given that role. That's their job. And thank God for that, because mothers, women are excellent mothers. They're naturals at it. Well, it's painful, yeah. Very painful. Oh, or gets a cold. Men's colds are like that's terrible. You guys just don't understand what it's be like to be a man and have a cold. Okay, that's it. We're done for the day. Yeah, we're going to clean up our areas now.